and Will Garner.
How you doing?
Today, one of the issues we want to talk about is building wealth through investing in real estate or buying your own business. And there's a big difference between the two. So we want to evaluate and look at what are the pros and cons between buying an existing business from some other business owner that's had the company for 20 or 30 years, or is it a better deal for you to get into buying some real estate and looking for passive real estate investments where you can be the landlord and put a tenant in? So I think that we have a lot of experience in both areas, and we want to be able to talk about some of those issues that might come up and our thoughts on which one might be better. So,
Yeah.
Will, so what do you think about this whole issue of buying real estate versus buying business? Now, I know you might say you want to do both, but if you had one to choose, and if you had $100,000 and you had to make a choice, would you buy existing business or would you buy a piece of real estate?
In this, from my perspective, I'm I'm more biased. So I'm going to go with. I'd rather have 10,000 doors and collect and let and that then vertically integrate maybe with the property management company and the other ancillary businesses. But I believe in having real estate as the cornerstone of my base for business, because just from the standpoint of appreciation and then the tangible asset business, running a business, I've done that on both sides with, I've had I have the tax business as well in addition to the real estate holdings. And it's, you know if you ever want to experience headaches in a massive way, just um, get into taxes from the beginning. As you develop it, it grows. Um, it gets easier as you put more systems in place. But
So I want to back up a second. So
mhm,
you're talking about you prefer your preference right now is getting involved in real estate rather than buying or even starting another business. You think if you had the money today, $100,000 that was available to you, you'd rather go buy an income producing real estate asset. So kind of define and explain to me, what do you think real estate investing looks like in today's environment?
I see the shift in the way people are looking at money. And that to me makes up the big difference of why I'm looking at real estate as the natural course. People are, you know, having less and less discretionary income, especially now what we're about to go through with tariffs and things like that. So I see a shift in investors who are leaning more towards acquiring more multifamily properties, um, especially in like large metropolitan areas such as Houston, where you have this big influx of people that are coming to Houston. Owning the real estate is a better opportunity unless you have the experience, the knowledge, and the ability to scale up a business in the right way. So it just depends on who you're dealing with. Now, also from the standpoint of when you're dealing with new technology like AI, owning the right business could become a very lucrative thing when you if you can achieve a true economy of scale and scale up your business with different systems that'll help operate the business.
So before we get into the whole part of AI and where we're going with small business, I want to stick to this thing of real estate investing and being able to purchase like multi-family properties or duplexes and even Airbnbs, things like this. So what we're seeing is inflation go up, right? The cost of things are going up tremendously. And so people are really having a problem about, Can they afford to build? Can they afford to buy this? And you bring up some good points by saying, hey, they're not going to be making more dirt, right? So
Right.
being able to buy this real estate that's producing income is a lot less headache, right?
Right. I feel like we're going into a renaissance era of, our entire economy. Like we're having like a drawback, but we're going to end up pushing forward. And the people who are going to truly, ride the wave are those who will be in position from a real estate perspective. I think real estate's going to, continue to appreciate, and we're going to see some, high levels of values that we've never seen before. When I look at, I was speaking with a gentleman I'm working with on some developments in Dubai, and one of the they have so many development projects that are going on right now, and he was just telling me that, you know right now, investing in Dubai, those properties in like 5 years will be almost triple the value just in a 5 year period. And these are opportunities where you can invest and go in at a 20% down and purchase Airbnb properties in Dubai. So and get continue to get, your residual income, and you have that appreciation. So, and I think globally also too when it comes to investing. So we're we're leading a group right now that's helping U.S. buyers purchase Airbnb properties in Dubai. So, you know,
So really, if you're buying properties overseas and you're an American, you're trying to avoid some of all these other risks that you're seeing with tariffs and all these other problems that might be going on in our system. So you're like
absolutely.
saying you want to get involved with real estate, but overseas.
Absolutely. Where do you want your money go into? You want it to go paying taxes and tariffs, or you look at somewhere like I said, Dubai, where you're not running into those type of issues. So, yeah, from a global standpoint, that's why I say it's at the beginning. It was kind of like it depends on who you're talking to, the person, because the United States will always be a capitalistic society and have so the opportunity for building and scaling a business is unlimited. There is no cap to what you can do, especially when you look at people like Tillman Fertitta and other business owners such as yourself that have grown these you know massive enterprises from small beginnings. The opportunity is available here in the United States for you to scale a business. But
So when you look at a guy like Tillman Tita, like who you're referring to, Tillman is a guy who's in real estate and business at the same time. So
that's right.
he's pulling on both things. He's operating restaurants and casinos that are generating revenue. And at the same time, he owns the land. He's getting appreciation from the land. He's flipping different real estate deals. So he's doing a little bit of both. So what I'm hearing you saying is like for you, they're like integrated. Small business in real estate, when you're looking at them, you're not making a choice. You're saying, I want both.
Yeah, you have to look at all angles you know of this and both sides of the coin. But like I said, I feel like real estate is the base of you know where you want to build at, and then from there you just scale your business. You mentioned earlier about the silver tsunami, of in regards to the baby boomers who are acquiring small businesses. What are your thoughts on that? And like, I guess from a legal perspective, what have you seen in terms of is there just a huge wave of clients that are coming to you to say, "Hey, I need legal help to acquire businesses"?
Well, I'm a real estate attorney, right? So I help my clients in real estate transactions, but I don't necessarily personally focus my attention on real estate investing
Hmm.
on a for a personal position. But I see there's a big opportunity there, but I think there's a massive opportunity with the silver tsunami. And that's kind of a term that's being used about how all these baby boomers in the next few years and even currently now are retiring, and they're leaving the small businesses that they've created, and they don't have anyone to leave them to.
Mm,
So what happens to those small businesses when people start to retire at 65, 70 years old and there's nowhere to go with the business? Well, the silver tsunami just says there's a great opportunity here for people to buy existing 20, 30-year-old companies and be able to take them over. And the SBA offers some really great loan products for this so that you can go out and purchase these companies and get all that revenue that's already coming from an existing company where it has like its own customer base and employees that have already been trained. And maybe there's a value added proposition there where you can come in and give them a new website or put in AI and automation. And so the millions of businesses that are be there are probably not going to sell to somebody, and they're just going to die. And so the real opportunity is, can you identify those? Can you start relationships with the owners and facilitate a purchase?
right.
And I've been to a few of these boot camps about this. I've read a lot of books on this. There's a wave of young people who are in business school and not in business school, even veterans that are getting into the world of buying and selling small businesses.
Yeah, that's a definite interesting topic and a different interesting uh, phenomenon. Especially like going into we're in what 2025 now, so going into 2030 over the next few years, a lot of these baby boomers are going to start transitioning out. So that the opportunity is great, and I think that's definitely something I'm going to look at for sure to see what type of opportunities are out there. Um, you know, with the silver tsunami.
Yeah,
So
there's a statistic that says 75% of business owners plans to exit in the next 10 years.
yeah,
And so what they're saying is that there's nowhere to go in 10 years with these companies. And a lot of them are not businesses that can just be replaced by AI. And they're called like sweaty jobs. You know, if you're someone who has a plumbing company or a roofing business, some of these businesses are very difficult for AI and robotics to replace. But
yes,
they're going to be in high demand regardless.
definitely.
S-
And
So if you can figure out what company would fit for you, then maybe you can find a deal out there. And there's a lot of different websites about buying and selling companies, but there's a lot of bad information out there. And how do you, when you find a business, know that its numbers are correct, the employees are getting paid what they say they're going to be paying? So you got to
right,
go through a whole audit process and due diligence period while you're trying to purchase the company. And it's kind of similar in when you buy some real estate and you have to go through your due diligence period and you have to figure out, is this real estate piece of land or building or whatever worth purchasing?
definitely, definitely. So one of we purchased a book of business for our on our insurance division that we have here at New Century Advisors. I went through a purchase of a book of business uh last year, and I it was just interesting. I had to just navigate a few different things because I was going through a divorce at the time too. So I would, had to hold some things off from buying this book of business. Definitely not to have it included in my divorce, but I was looking at that book of business. This woman, she wanted 300,000 for her book, 325 to be exact, for her book of business, and she wanted just a 1.5 multiplier on what you know on her book of business. So the some of the challenges with acquiring her book of businesses or any book of business, and this is speaking from the insurance standpoint, is, what is the fall off or that someone may have when acquiring a business or a book of business in terms of client base. So,
So
you know,
you're referring to like the key man risk, and
the
so
key
those key
man,
man risk.
yes,
Go ahead.
definitely, because because you, whoever the business owner that you're purchasing that book of business with, what is that relationship like with that client base? How does that current business owner interact with those clients? You can't just go in and buy a book, a business or a book of business from someone and be hands off. How are you making that connect with that existing client base to where the clients that are already utilizing that business on a day to day are resonating with you as the new business owner? That's one
Right.
of the
So
intangibles that you that are outside of just the numbers.
that's a big difference between when you buy an apartment complex, right? When you come in as a new landlord and you've taken over apartment complexes, typically the tenants don't care
They don't
if
care.
you're the new owner. What they want to make sure is the place is still clean, the parking lot is being taken care of, the washrooms are okay, that their their space is being taken care of, and all the maintenance issues are happening. But
Definitely.
what you're talking about is when you bought that book of insurance business, that the clients are going to have certain relationships with that person. And is that going to be able to be transferable to you? Y-
That definitely. How are you going to resonate with that existing clientele base? And more so than that, what value are you going to bring to the table too? Because you're going to experience some attrition anyway. I would expect, with any business acquisition, you're going to experience some level of attrition because you're going to have a rough patch that you got to go through, whether it's with employees or with client base. But having that mindset up front, this is my action plan before I take over this business. What are we doing from day one to, you know, not only improve what we're doing, what the business is already doing, but what's working with the business currently. Let's keep that going. Let's enhance it. We don't have to break it down and do away with it. If it's working, right? Because there's a reason some of these businesses have been in business for 30 or 40 years. So, I think those are just some things to think about that anybody who may be looking at acquiring a business has to take into consideration.
So when you took on that book of business for the insurance, did the seller stay on for a while and hold your hand kind of way, or introduce you to the client base, or give you any kind of tips on how to handle her business?
Definitely, that was an agreement also up front where, you know the agreement was for her to continue to work within the business for 6 months. And she actually didn't need a base salary, but any new business that she brought into the door, we paid her a commission on. So that works out great. The existing staff stayed in place, and with her clientele was more so a Spanish based clientele. So having those employees that already knew, those clients, had the working relationship with them, that was key. And so those were some of the things that, I did my due diligence on up front, uh, before we acquired the business.
So did you ever like audit her books, or make any kind of determination if like all the clients that she said were genuine clients, or if they were actually paying the way they were supposed to?
Yeah, so I'm, in a good situation. I am a branch owner of TWFG. So within TWFG Insurance, my branch is the Will Garner New Century branch. So with TWFG, we have an internal audit, um, uh, here in the Woodlands, at our corporate office. So all of the financials are audited, and we have an actual internal system that keeps track of how much existing. you know, premium is on the books, how many clients are on the books, and then what our, the revenues are monthly. So it's vetted within our organization by a third party. So everything is audited. So yeah, if you are going to acquire, let's say, just any business, whether it's like a plumbing, shop like you were mentioning, you definitely would want to bring in a CPA to audit the financials of that business. It's going to cost you some money for you and as well as the other business owner, but you're going to want to have some audited financials to make sure that you know it's better to spend that money up front as opposed to like losing it on the back end for sure.
So in the buying business industry, there, especially with the small businesses that are usually 5 to $10 million range, what you have is a guy or a woman who's called a Q of E expert, and that's the quality of earnings. And what they do is they go in and do that due diligence period, make sure the numbers are what they say they're supposed to be, and because you take those earnings numbers and you give it a multiple so that you can purchase the company based on that. So what the Q of E person will go in, similar to what a lot of accountants will do in an audit. They go in there and say, okay, well, this salary should be taken out, or this additional information should be added in, or we need to extract this, or maybe this information that they gave you isn't correct. So that they try to make sure the numbers are real clean on the buyer side for you to be able to purchase this business. And there's some really great Q of E guys out there. And there's one who has a YouTube show named Elliot Holland. And
Elliot Holland, I
Elliot
have to look him up.
is
Write that
a
down.
legit guy. He's a Harvard MBA, and I believe he went to Morehouse. And he has some excellent videos about buying and selling businesses and going through due diligence. Probably one of the most underrated YouTube channels out there.
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely interesting information. You said his name is Elliot Holland.
Yeah.
Elliot Holland.
HOLLAND. And he's
Yeah, we'll work
a Q of E guy.
Q of E. Okay, we're definitely
Yeah.
working our
So
way up
so
into that.
that's a benefit in buying businesses, that you do have some of these professionals that can help you through the process of purchasing a business. Now, when you go out to buy real estate, there's not really many people or professionals there to help you through the evaluation of telling you, what do you think this property is worth. Of course, you have your appraiser that comes from the banks. You can hire your own independent appraiser. You can look at the revenue streams and have somebody give that analysis. But a lot of times with real estate, it's about, what are you willing to pay for it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that could be kind of subjective in a lot of ways. And you could do your comparables and try to figure it out and say, okay, well, it should be worth this much per square foot. But as we're seeing right now, especially in Texas and Florida, prices are starting to come down.
Yeah.
And people are looking back and say, well, maybe we might have paid a little too much for this real estate 2, 3 years ago. What do you think about that argument that maybe right now real estate's been overpriced and it's coming down, and you should probably wait?
Um, I think that we've had a surplus coming in development, and so I feel like our market was just really trying to catch up, and so you are seeing better pricing on homes per se. There was a ton of developers and builders who, kickstarted more projects, a couple of years ago. That now you're starting to see that surplus in homes, but like in the Houston market, we still right now the demand is still, is definitely meeting the supply. So I'm not sure in terms of what, over the next, you know 2 years we're going where we're going, but I definitely I encourage, people who are looking for homes, or if they're looking for, investment properties, that, you know It's no time like today because the property values that may have been are stagnating, but they're going to continue. They will continue to appreciate in value over time.
It really does become pretty much like location dependent too, right?
Definitely.
Because things in the woodlands or in Katy, they're gone in a second. They don't stay on the market very
They
long.
don't stay on the market long at all. So that's what I say is there's a the builders have they're putting up product left and right, so there's a ton of development going on. What is your thought process? I know you had mentioned that you had a duplex that you had bought for. Did you buy it for a client, or you were renting it out to a client? Or are you looking at more buying single family, or are you trying to find more multifamily stuff for yourself?
No, I have clients that are looking at multifamily properties that they really like. What they've had issues is that they thought a lot of the properties were overvalued, and that the sellers hadn't become realistic yet about what the prices were. And they were still going forward thinking that they could get these really high returns on a property that they bought maybe 2, 3 years ago. And so for me, with my clients, they're a little more savvy and they want a deal. So they always are looking to buy real estate, but they want it at the right price.
Right.
And so what you
Right.
saw 2 years ago was maybe people just jumping in buying everything when interest rates were really low. And now they're coming back and they're saying, well, because of property taxes, because of insurance, we can no longer afford to hold this property, and they expect to get 20% more than they pay for it. But the savvier buyers are saying, no, I'll probably pay you what you would pay for it or a
Right.
little bit less.
Yeah, and all of that works in inverse of each other. When interest rates were down, yeah, the property values, of course, went up. You know, so definitely, I see that as well. Interest rates have gone up definitely more from when they were 2.75%. So that's why people who did buy in are trying to get more. But that makes sense. If you're a savvier, more of a savvy investor, then they want a deal. So if they can find a deal, they can get a deal.
Yeah, so when I kinda do some analysis on, like, buying companies versus buying real estate, I look at really what are the costs that go into both. The thing about real estate, usually you get the benefit of leverage. So you can come in and you can buy, and only lay out 20% or 30% cash to buy a piece of property. Sometimes with a business, you can do the same, but there's a lot more variables and it's harder to dispose of a business than it is some real estate. Generally, dealing with the business, you have the employees, you have rules, you have all these regulations, but it cash flows and it hopefully if you buy the right business, it throws off a lot more cash that you can do other things with. With real estate, you're going in, you're hoping it can appreciate and that tenants that are in there and whatever revenue is generating will service your debt and you won't have big maintenance issues. The taxes will stay low and the insurance will stay low. But what we're seeing is interest rates go up, property taxes go up, all the maintenance issues. If you're having a maintenance issue now, you have to go find a new AC. You have to replace components inside the house. And with tariffs, all that stuff is going to go up.
This is gonna
But
go up.
the same is going to be true when you buy a business because if you're looking for new machinery, new products that you have to bring into your business, all that's going to go up also.
So ultimately, what we're saying is that right now it's important to stay cash heavy. Tariffs are going to cause an extreme inflation and stuff. Oh, I think I saw some other just yesterday, Timu and Shein. They by the end of the week they're expecting their prices to double. So you're gonna have people spending less, and you're gonna have businesses that are gonna suffer. and then you'll feel the ripple effects that you'll start to see in the real estate market. So those investors who are going to be more cash heavy will be able to take advantage of foreclosures and other properties that people who face some unfortunate the unfortunate wave of tariffs will start trying to liquidate some of those properties over here over the next few months. Now, of course, that all depends on what happens with what Donald Trump wants to do with tariffs. I believe he wants to choke China until they can't breathe no more. It to me it feels like a pissing match more than anything from what I
Oh,
see.
for sure. That's exactly what it is. It's a trade war.
It's a
It's
trade
trying to
war.
see who can survive.
Yep. So there will be blood at the end of the day. That's for sure. So stay cash heavy and be ready to invest because for this, and you're going. We'll start to see some great deals that'll come to the table.
One thing they say about when you buy an investment, right? You make your money at the beginning when you purchase. So it's not always when you sell, it's when you purchase because that's when the real value has been recognized. So
Yeah,
if you can recognize that at the very beginning when times are tough, when people are scared to buy stuff, that's when your money is going to be made. It's not when you sell it.
definitely,
So you have to be able to see out in front.
definitely, definitely. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting few months, that's for sure. So tell me, let's hop into this next segment that you have. We wanted to go over. You had something you sent me the other day. I wanted to talk with you about. Oh yeah, your tell me more about that program with the SBA that you were looking at.
You know what, Will? I think your recording on Riverside switched up some kind of way. You see that?
It's saying I'm no, it's still recording. Oh, I see it
Okay.
now. A new recording track was created. That's interesting. So it's got a mind of his own. Well, you know what? You know what, Ham? Are you there? Hello?
Yeah. You
Okay.
there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, but no, this has been good. I think let's scale it down for today because I'm not it's saying new recording track created. We're gonna figure this out. It's like it's trying to upload something at the same time, but I
Yeah,
like
it kind
I
of
like the
it
software.
went out for a second. I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Um, but it I think it has you recording somewhere else.
it's all good. So for the people on tour joining us live on TikTok, we uh we are using a recording software. That way we can actually bring you this content to make it viewable on our YouTube.